notes in hand. Tim's got puns that fly like confetti. They're your go-to movie band. Video Game Movie Club. Laugh until the credits roll. Joey Alex, Tim will dub. Scenes that make you lose control.
Hello, welcome back to Video Game Movie Club. Is that what we settled on?
I think so. It rolls off the tongue nicely.
Do we think, Alex?
Do we think it does?
I don't know. We'll find out. Continual feedback is appreciated. Welcome back to what we think is the Video Game Movie Club. I am Joey. I am joined by my regular co-hosts, Alex.
Hi.
And Tim.
Hello.
There you go. There they are in all their joy. Now, last time we watched a fun-loving romp that was Bob Hoskins' Mario movie. Gentlemen, has that movie left its impact on you?
I mean, I'm getting a tattoo in a couple of weeks of Dennis Hopper saying "Babomba."
We're also still quoting Scapelli on a daily basis.
Scapelli.
On a daily basis. And now, the next question. Do you think the movie that we watched for this episode will have the same impact?
In the same way that trauma does, yes.
Yeah, okay, cool. So, Silent Hill Revelation, the second Silent Hill movie, was released in 2012. It is an hour and a half long, although it might feel like a few days if you watch it. Directed by M.J. Bassett and has an incredible cast. Can I just say that off the bat? We have Kit Harington, or Jon Snow as you all know him, Sean Bean, Carrie-Anne Moss, or Trinity, Malcolm McDowell, who is Alex in A Clockwork Orange. All of these are in this film. Alex, you just shut up, right? Did you not realise that was the guy from A Clockwork Orange?
I didn't realise that was the guy from Clockwork Orange,
yeah.
no.
Yeah, there you go. I'll go through the story in a little bit. I will preface this with I watched this movie about a week ago, and I had to watch a recap video on YouTube because it was so nonsensical and unmemorable that I couldn't remember what had happened. So there you go. Gonna go for immediate thoughts on the film with Tim, please.
What a piece of shit. Like, I was in uni when this film came out, and I can remember because I enjoy the first Silent Hill film as a fan of the Silent Hill series. It's not the best film by any means, but it's an enjoyable enough movie. And I can remember looking at the trailer for this thinking, God, this looks awful. I think I'll give it a miss, because we were in that real golden age of, ooh, it's coming out the screen 3D when that was being first kind of unleashed onto the world.
Yeah.
I watched the trailer for this when it was coming out and was like, this is going to be this exact thing of, ooh, how scary, it's coming out the screen, for about 2 hours. And having watched it today, I was exactly right about 10 years ago.
Good. Any other thoughts?
Yeah, the dialogue is very stiff and the deliveries are very wooden.
Uh-huh.
There's a whole scene where Sean Bean is stood in a flashback talking to a mirror with his dead wife in the mirror, and he goes, Rose, Rose, Rose. And his wife, every time she starts and ends a sentence, it's with the words, my love, and it was incredibly distracting. It felt like that the spoilers for the end of the movie, that the whole film could have been summarized with Alyssa, the villain, just getting a hug.
Alyssa wasn't the villain, Tim.
Sorry,
I would say she wasn't the villain. I would say she was the victim.
Fine, the antagonist, shall we say?
Okay.
Could have been resolved with the whole thing resolves with. She just needed a hug all along, and it's the most cliche dumb shit, but in a not fun way.
Cool, Alex, do you agree?
Yeah, pretty much. For me, I'm not a big horror film guy. I just find them incredibly boring. I also I'm not into the Silent Hill franchise as a whole. I just don't get it. I had no clue what was going on this entire movie. Every so often there'd be a cut to another scene, and I'd be like, well, hang on, why are we here now? To sort of echo what Tim said about the acting, this is a really good set of actors, and yet it all felt like it was almost like a high school drama kind of class. It was very stiff and very sort of stilted, and I don't know, it was just it wasn't well acted. The relationship between Heather or Alyssa or however she wanted to go at the time,
and Vincent.
Yeah, between them two, honestly, was giving me whiplash because it was like 1 minute she was like, "Oh, you're never gonna know me, and I don't like you," and then suddenly they're friends, and then suddenly they hate each other, and they're friends again. I didn't know. It didn't help me understand what was going on.
That's fair. I do have a question for you both before I give my thoughts. Tim mentioned that this was released in the pinnacle of we think 3D is going to overrun the film industry. Here is something nonsensical flying out the screen at you. What was your favourite thing that flew out the screen in this movie? And then a follow-up question, what's your favourite thing that's flown out the screen of any movie?
I think in this movie, there's a monster that's made entirely of mannequin arms, which, credit where credit's due, that is a very cool design.
Okay.
Now, granted, I have some issues with the creature being there in the first place, but we'll get to that in later on and down this episode. But that thing where it held the head up of the mannequin it just made, and the mannequin went, ah, and the producers presumably thought the audience would go, that was a cool shot. But in terms of things that I've seen in 3D that made me go, ooh, there's a lot of sound effects in this episode. I'm trying to think. There's a film that I saw with a shark on it, and like the shark coming out the screen 3D was actually very well done. It might have been The Meg.
Oh my God. Don't compliment the Meg.
3D has never had a great track run in any movie.
I have one instance where 3D was done to perfection.
Sorry, me too. Spy Kids 3D, thank you. I won't elaborate further.
Alex, same question. What was your favourite thing that flew out the screen in this and overall?
The only bit I really noticed flying out the screen was the nurse's head at the end when she got decapitated. And it sort of tumbled through the air, and it was like very clearly meant to be a "ooh, it's coming at you" kind of thing. I genuinely cannot think of any film that I've watched where something's come out of the screen and I've gone, "That was really well done."
Right.
It's just it feels like it was a gimmick that kind of came and went.
Very gladly came and went. Do you remember when 3D
Yes.
TVs were a thing, and people were actually expected to sit at home with the stupid glasses?
You had those glasses that were battery charged, and the idea with them was that they would, like, each lens would effectively flicker on and off so fast to the point that your eyes would only see one image at a time.
Is that not called epilepsy?
I don't think so.
No. My favourite thing coming out the screen in this film was the scene with Pyramid Head and all the hands in the prison, I think.
Yeah.
And he chopped the hands and all the fingers flew at you like, ooh. I thought that was insanely bad, but in a really funny way. Like that. The reason I'm stalling my thoughts here is because there is a bit of a twist with my thoughts. Much better twist than Silent Hill gave us. But the only good use of 3D in any film, in my opinion, I went to see Jackass 3D in the cinema.
Okay, yeah,
and it was
fair enough.
Fantastic. There was a point where they shot a sex toy out of a cannon at the screen, and the big willy flying towards you. Perfection. It was the only instance where I thought, it's the only time I've ever sat there in the cinema and gone, it was worth paying extra for 3D. Right, my thoughts on Silent Hill Revelation. It is one of the worst movies I've ever seen. If you count it as a Silent Hill movie or a horror movie. If you treat it like scary movie, it's actually
like a comedy horror.
Unintentionally hilarious.
Oh, all the time.
So the scene Tim was on about where they had the mannequin head, and we will come onto that when I do the story. Tim, did you watch that back at all, or have you only seen it once?
I've only seen it the one.
The worst CGI I've ever seen.
It's awful.
It looks so out of place.
Yeah, and there's a reason that I think that there's about the halfway point they give up with all exposition and they just go, well, this happened in the Silent Hill game, so you can look at that for a bit. And this happened in the Silent Hill game, so you can look at that for a bit. It was insane.
This is my issue with the whole movie, though, because you're right. At some point halfway through, they're just like, oh, remember this, remember that. But the whole thing...
Before you say anything here, let's put in a massive spoiler warning, not just for this film, but for the entire of Silent Hill franchise.
Sure. So the whole thing with Silent Hill, just as a premise, is the creatures and horrors that you see there are meant to be reflective of the person who's experiencing it, their psyche, what they're currently going through. So in Silent Hill 2, Pyramid Head,
which most of the monsters in this game are from.
Yeah. Because Sean Bean plays a guy.
No, no, he doesn't.
No,
James Sutherland is nothing to do with this film.
Right. So if we just look at James Sutherland in Silent Hill 2.
Sorry, Sunderland.
Sunderland, my bad.
No, it's my bad as well, don't worry.
His whole thing was that his wife was dying, yes?
No, dead.
Dead. But there was a whole thing with him sexualizing the nurses because he was feeling essentially unsatisfied, and there's a whole connection there with sexualizing someone else, and they don't have faces because they don't mean anything to him. That kind of imagery is incredibly well thought out in the game, and with Pyramid Head, who is arguably the most famous thing out of the Silent Hill series, he's meant to be symbolic of James's guilt. He carries this massive sword that's obviously very unwieldy and cumbersome, just like James's guilt. But he also uses it as a weapon, but he feels the need to hide away, hence the pyramid. But he feels the need to be strong.
The coolest thing about the pyramid is because it's dipped at the front, it adds a huge weight. And if you look, Pyramid Head's head is always facing down.
Yeah.
And it's literally hanging his head in shame.
And then he's this kind of buff guy, like Pyramid Head's got this really good figure, like muscles and what have you, because he needs to be strong. Yeah, he's so jacked. But that's because he feels like he needs to be strong for those around him. And this kind of imagery is incredibly well thought out in the Silent Hill video games for the most part. But then in this, they were just like, some unrelated guy's daughter can see the sexy nurses, which she won't have a connection to, and also Pyramid Head, which she won't have a connection to, and mannequins, which she doesn't seem to have a connection to. Mm-hmm. It's just a bloogie woogie woo, the movie.
I do actually think the mannequins are from Silent Hill 3, which is where our protagonist is from. Mm-hmm. So I think there is a connection there. I just have no idea what it is.
It's very unclear in the movie. And I personally haven't played Silent Hill 3, but if I'm treating this film in a vacuum, which if you're paying to watch this in cinemas, you definitely should, then there is no explanation for the mannequins. It's just weird for the sake of weird.
Yeah. And it's that way for a lot of stuff. Sorry, go on, Alec.
Okay. What you were saying about the relationship between the nurses and Pyramid Head being the guilt and everything, is that why Pyramid Head just starts absolutely annihilating the nurses at the end of this film? Because I have no idea why he started doing that.
So the whole thing with Pyramid Head and the nurses in the games is because James feels like he's essentially mistreated or he's abused the objects of his sexual desires. And that's his guilt being going into the sword, which is being used as Pyramid Head's weapon against the nurses, the things he sexualizes. In this, James isn't in this. The nurses are unconnected. Pyramid Head is unconnected. It's just, hey, remember this?
And then Pyramid Head just went, I'm going to start stabbing.
Well, we'll get into this. I've got quite a few notes on this. I had to make them because the story is so all over the place.
It's incomprehensible.
But the bit Alex is talking about, it's not actually the nurses that he kills at the end. It is the cult leader who becomes a demon with saws in her head, which I actually think is the only original demon or the original monster from this film. So it's never actually explained who that is. And for no reason whatsoever does Pyramid Head become a good guy. And he's like, oh, I'm going to save Heather for absolutely no reason.
See, I
Yeah.
thought that was like some sort of boss nurse.
Nope, nothing at all.
Right, okay. That is
So-
me not understanding the film.
I think that is everyone not understanding the film.
I think it's the producers and the writers and the directors not understanding.
I actually think, and once again, it's in my main notes. I actually think there is a degree of understanding within this. There is a degree of we understand what Silent Hill is as a franchise, but there's a complete lack of understanding as to what makes each individual Silent Hill worth playing or watching. I think what they've done is they've gone, I understand the premise of the franchise, and I've seen that Pyramid Head is something that people like to see, so we'll stick him in the game or the film, which is just the wrong way of doing it.
There's the whole thing in Silent Hill 2 especially, I'm referring to here. Obviously, the Silent Hill 2 remake is the most recent thing to come out of the franchise. And there's a whole theme of everyone experiences Silent Hill differently. Yeah. So what you may be, if us three were in Silent Hill, if fan fiction incoming,
would be loads of sexy Alex nurses.
Absolutely. I mean, I'm glad we would see the same thing, Joey. But,
me too.
But we, what each of us would see would presumably be different because each of us has our own individual fears and thoughts and dreams and whatever. But there's none of this. Everyone sees the same thing, and that to me completely voids the point.
But so the director from this and the original 2006 film is different, and the 2006 film. The reason, if you remember, at the end of the last Video Game Movie Club, I ummed and ahed between the two. The first one is okay, like it's fine. It gets Silent Hill. The monsters are quite specific to the protagonist. They are not very well explained, which I think is a good thing for Silent Hill. In the reason that I chose this one is because it is so poor and would make good content. What you'd be pleased to hear, particularly Tim, return to Silent Hill, the movie that's coming out of Silent Hill 2. The director of that is the director of the original Silent Hill.
Oh, great.
2006. So
you think he's written the title as what he's doing right now?
Yeah, maybe.
Returning to Silent Hill.
Just going back to Silent Hill.
Yeah.
Just popping down.
Right. Wish me luck. We're going to talk about the story.
You got this.
Okay. Big breaths. So, I'm going to read my notes word for word here. These were partially done during, partially done after my watch. Why do we start in a carnival? It's never in Silent Hill. So we start off in a carnival. Heather, our main character, is running away from something or someone and then ends up on a carousel, which is hilariously being controlled by Pyramid Head. Please feel free to interject at any time, gentlemen. Is the image of Pyramid Head using a bicycle with his arms to make the carousel spin, the dumbest thing you've ever seen so far?
It's up there.
we're 5 minutes into the movie.
I'd say less than that.
Give it a chance.
I think it was the first scene, wasn't it?
Yes,
it was the first scene.
I just looked it up because obviously you said that the protagonist of this movie, Heather, is Heather Sharon. Which one is it?
Well, it's actually the same person. So this is a prequel to the 2006, and prequel might be a sequel. No, it's a sequel. Sorry,
it has
to
to
the
be
2006.
Yeah,
and in the original, she was called Sharon, and Sean Bean was called Ian.
that sounds
And
right.
in this, they're called Heather and Harry. And the way it's explained is that they are trying to escape a cult in Silent Hill, so they have to keep changing their names. The real reason is that the protagonist in Silent Hill 3 is called Heather, and they didn't want to call her Sharon.
Yeah, but I have just looked. I typed in Silent 3 Carnival, as mentioned. I've not played it, so I wanted to see if it was a thing. There is no carnival in Silent Hill 3. There is a carousel, but that is very much inside a building.
Oh, cool. Yeah, that makes sense.
Great.
Once again, that would be a manifestation of Heather's thoughts, fears.
Childlike innocence or something like that.
Whatever it is, but it's not in a big spooky clown film carnival.
No.
then the carousel sets on fire, and we see an above shot of the carousel. Did anyone else think it was the umbrella logo from Resident Evil?
It did look a lot like
I
it.
did, yeah. I went,
I
oh,
was
look, it's the umbrella logo. Oh, wait, this isn't Resident Evil.
That's exactly what I did. I genuinely sat there and thought, if I hadn't just seen that dude with the big triangular head rotating a carousel, I would think I was watching Resident Evil. There are Resident Evil movies that are bad. None of them are this bad. And it sets fire. The carousel's on fire, and then an emo version of Heather comes up and says, "Don't go to Silent Hill," and then she wakes up in a cold sweat. We then meet Sean Bean, or Harry, but for the sake of this recording, or Ian, I'm going to call him Sean Bean. My note here is, in this movie, Sean Bean died so quickly, even by Sean Bean standards, only for this to be ruined by the fact that it was a dream. So Sean Bean is saying, "Heather, don't worry, you're okay." And then he gets stabbed, and then Heather wakes up again. So it was a dream within a dream. This is Silent Hillception, and this is the first 5 minutes of the film. Okay.
Another 90 to go.
So I think the first half of this film will take a little while to explain, because all it is Expedition Dump. The last half is much, much, much quicker.
Mm-hmm.
Heather and Harry are on the move to escape a cult in Silent Hill. I think they're called the Order.
Yes.
And Heather is on her way to school and runs into a guy who looks a bit like the cartoon version of Inspector Gadget, who is a private investigator. We then go to the school that Heather goes to, and she's asked to introduce herself. And she says, "Let me save you all some time. I'm not going to like you. You're not going to like me. And you can all piss off," basically, in more words than that.
Yeah.
I will interject here. Kit Harison's response to that when he goes, "How am I meant to follow that?" might be the funniest bit of this entire film.
I have another one in my notes that might challenge it, but it's also from Kit Harington, so I think fair comment. But then we meet Vincent, who is also new that day, and as Alex said, he says, "How am I meant to follow that?" And then the teacher just goes, "Well, let's just get on with the lesson." Sean Bean is kidnapped by... We're meant to go, "Ooh, I wonder who it's by," but it's actually by a PowerPoint screen wipe. It fades to black, and he's taken away. Heather sees the PI in the... And the reason this sounds like we're jumping about it is because that's what the movie does.
Mm-hmm.
Heather is in the mall and sees the PI and runs away, and tries to go to a security guard. Sorry, Tim.
At which point Inspector Gadget says, "Go, go, Gadget, Eldritch Horror."
Exactly, yeah. And you see a security guard with his face sewn up, and Heather screams and runs away. My first thought was, what if that was someone with a genuine injury and that's how she reacted? But she's speaking to the PI, and he dumps more exposition about how he works for the Order. They asked him to find Heather, but now he knows that they're evil. He wants to protect them.
I hate this trope so fucking much. The whole thing of, "I was sent here to save you, but now I realize you're good," and then she's like, "No, everyone in Silent Hill's trapped," and he's like, "Not me," and it's just a very annoying trope in horror sequels where it's like, yes, there is an established rule, but some of us can break the rule for no real reason.
We will come back to that.
Yeah.
But the detective, the PI, his name in the games is Douglas Cartland. And I've played a bit of Silent Hill 3. I've not completed it. Douglas Cartland is one of the best characters in it. He is quite faithful to the PI in this game. Even down to the looks, he starts off, but he does have that trope that Tim hates, even in the games. And I thought when I first watched this, oh, Douglas Cartland, that cool guy. I wonder how they're going to integrate him with the rest of the film. Then a demon rips his fucking head off in an elevator, and that is the last we see of him.
Yep.
So they then get the bus after seeing this horrible thing. Kit Harington and Heather get the bus, and she says a question, which is where I think the understanding of Silent Hill comes from. She says something along the lines of, "Do you think dreams and reality ever interconnect?" And there's a whole thing here about, dreams, reality can cross over, nightmares and reality can cross over, and that's Silent Hill. And I think it shows like a really good understanding of the premise of the games, but it's absolutely ruined by going, here it is on a big sign with flashing lights to say, this is the scary thing. This is what's going to haunt you for the rest of the film.
Well, that when she said, "Oh, do you think there's a difference between dreams and reality?" That fucking meme from Family Guy where Peter and Quagmire sat down in a bar and he's just like, "Who starts a conversation like that?"
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, that the whole scene was that.
Yeah, I agree. But I think from there on out, I thought there's no chance any of this will be anything other than jump scares, because they've gone, yes, that absolutely can happen. And it does. And he says something about, you should talk to my granddad. It's all he speaks about. Okay, cool. He just made his granddad sound nuts, and then he was like, you can hang out with him. They get back to Heather's house, and "Come to Silent Hill" is written in blood on the wall with a sigil of the Order. And I wondered what subtle foreshadowing they were pointing to there. So despite everyone in the first 20 minutes of the film saying, don't ever go to Silent Hill, it's the worst thing you can do, they pack up their bags and they go on a little exposition to Silent Hill. Now, Alex, this is where I challenge your funniest line in the whole film.
Okay.
When they're reading Sean Bean's notes about Silent Hill and the Order, she says, the town of Silent Hill was built on an ancient Indian burial ground. And Kit Harington turns to Heather and goes, everyone knows you never build on an ancient Indian burial ground.
Why does no one ever listen?
I laughed out loud at this line and actually thought it was genuinely quite good. We have another cutscene in hell, basically, and we see Heather in the hotel room. And Jon Snow, out of nowhere, looks guilty and goes, just so you know, I am one of the bad guys. I have come here to kill you or to take you to Silent Hill because I'm a bad guy. But now I get to know you. You are great. And I basically have the same story as the PI, but I'm younger, so I can be a love interest. Why did he tell her? I don't get it.
I feel like that was meant to be this big dramatic plot twist in the movie, but it just came. All it made me do was go, well, what, why, how?
Yeah,
it just didn't make any sense.
Well, that could be the strap line of the film.
Well, yeah, it's like they were writing the movie, and as they were going through, they were going, "This is a bit crap, isn't it?" And then went, "Right, let's scribble that out. He's actually a bad guy, but he's a good guy because he likes her now. Let's go with that."
I think what they actually did was they were writing down the script and they were like, oh, pages 10 through 15 are crap. Let's just chuck them out and hope no one notices. That's what it felt like.
The bit that explains their building relationship.
But once again, it's just more exposition dump. I was a child of the Order and I got out of Silent Hill by making some kind of sacrifice. And he took his shirt off and he was covered in scars, was his sacrifice, basically. But they have another instance of going into Silent Hill's other dimension, which, fair play. The other dimension, when they get it right, look quite good. And I think that this did look quite good. But here we see the demon that killed the PI again. And instead of killing Heather or taking Heather, it takes Jon Snow. Like, she was right there. Could have easily just grabbed her and gone, right, that was easy, my plan's done. But, we've got another hour to kill. So, through more exposition dump, when she meets her real mother in Silent Hill, we find out that Alessa, who is Heather's shadow, I think they called it, is like the culmination of all the bad things in the world that Heather is the good side of. And we find out that Alessa was burned alive by a cult and I've got this with a question mark at the end, to purify her.
Yeah.
I didn't understand what that was about.
From what I get, essentially there's a bit of a superstition in the town. The whole town is cursed, and they thought instead of purifying her, it's to purify the town. I think
That's the way I took it. Yeah.
Well, who knows?
who knows?
But the rage of Alessa when Burnt Alive created a dark world in Silent Hill and has cursed them all so that they can't leave. The cult need Heather and Alessa to unify so they can remove the evil of Silent Hill and then they can be evil somewhere else. I didn't really understand the point in that either.
No.
This is where we've stopped getting exposition and we just move from set piece to set piece to set piece. So I wrote the mannequin monster ? Tim spoke about this before, but there is a monster made up of mannequin parts that, just turns women into mannequin parts and then makes it scream at the audience.
It was like a mannequin spider, wasn't it? Because they were all in like a web.
Yeah, and Alessa saves one of the people in the web and then they try and escape through a vent and she disappears. She gets dragged back by the mannequin spider and Alessa goes, "Oh no," anyway, and just walks off and we never hear from the mannequin spider again.
I get they didn't make much of a connection, but I would have thought there'd be a little more emotional gravitas to that situation.
Well, also, I would expect to see Heather go back and defeat the spider at some point, or it stalk her throughout the rest of the film. We just never see it again. It was the most creative thing, design-wise, I think, in this whole film.
Yeah.
But we don't see it again.
No. It's there for maybe 2 minutes.
If that. So then we find out that Carrie-Anne Moss is in charge of the cult. I didn't actually write down her name. I just called her Trinity for the whole thing.
Cassie Wolf, I think it was. I think I've got it here. Claudia Wolf.
Don't think it matters at this point. Trinity is in charge of the cult and says we need to unify them. And something about gods, but I just did not follow it. It's not Silent Hill lore. Something about capturing gods in Heather's soul or
yeah, something. I think it was so that she could control a god ? But they needed Heather / Sharon's body to be the vessel for the god.
Yes, thank you. And then we meet Jon Snow's granddad, played by Malcolm McDowell.
What a waste of a role this was.
The thing is, it was by far the best bit of acting in the entire fucking film.
Yeah.
His bit was incredible. In the sea of
incredible might be pushing it, but it was
in the sea of everything else.
yeah. There was something about the symbol of the cults, and Heather brought one to him, and they united them. And then he turned into another monster that isn't in Silent Hill, Nemesis from Resident Evil. Why? I don't get it, but.
Carries her out of the room, and the way she resolves the matter is by putting her hand into what looks like a plate of spaghetti to grab a CD.
I actually thought that this bit was very faithful to video games as a whole because all she did was attack the glowing orange point.
That's true.
So, by pulling out the symbol of the cult from the guy's back, he died, and that was it.
Yeah.
I mean, there's stuff here about Pyramid Head chasing Heather through the prison with all the arms. It's very much there for trailer bait. It didn't serve any purpose other than to say Pyramid Head is quite big and has a big sword that is quite sharp and can kill you. It wasn't.
Member Pyramid Head?
Exactly. And then to another member scene, we have my favourite scene in the whole film where Kit Harington is tied to a bed and there are loads of sexy evil nurses around. They don't move unless they can hear you. And Heather and Vincent proceed to have a full conversation in the room. The other thing that I really thought was very funny about this, why were the nurses just making sex noises when they were swinging their knives?
Well, like I said, I know in the source material they're supposed to be like the representation of essentially sexual frustration. But that doesn't mean they should be making moaning noises the entire scene.
No, it was bad. Sorry, I've just sneezed. I went on mute first. I'm allergic to awful films. But they tip it over, and the nurses are swinging knives and making sex noises, but missing everyone in a 5-meter radius. They're just there for more trailer bait. And we end up running out of the hospital and into the carnival from the dream at the start. It was a premonition.
Ooh.
Thank you for both doing that in unison. That was really good. We get on the carousel. Pyramid Head is indeed being a hilarious hand crank magician and moving the carousel. And emo Heather is there saying, "You shouldn't have come." And then Heather goes, "Come here and have a hug." And she says no, but then Heather hugs her anyway, and Alessa dies.
Yeah.
They unify by having a hug. Heather and Vincent find... Sure, I've lost so much steam. I just can't be bothered. They find Sean Bean, and
Oh, by the way, the whole time, every time that Heather knew that Vincent was a part of this cult originally, she would be like, "Where's my dad?" And he would be like, "He's in the sanctum under the cathedral." And then every time that they saw each other, she would go, "Where's my dad?" And he would go, "He's in the sanctum under the cathedral." Then the next time, "Where's my dad?" ad nauseum.
well, they go to the sanctum under the cathedral and find Sean Bean.
It's like he didn't lie 3 times.
And then there's a fight scene between the demon that killed the PI and kidnapped Jon Snow, and Pyramid Head, who all of a sudden has decided he's a good guy and wants to be Heather's bodyguard? ?
Well, that's because he's James Sutherland's guilt.
But why? Like, he shouldn't even be there. It's not the same game. Never mind the film. It's stupid. The Pyramid Head cuts off Trinity's head, and everyone cheered as it rolled towards you in the cinema and said, "Blue, you were." I've jumped out the screen. And Heather and Jon Snow escape, but Sean Bean decides to stay in Silent Hill because his wife is apparently there. Tim, can you just do a line from the wife?
"Oh, my love, do not come to Silent Hill, my love. My love, you need to protect my love daughter, my love. I'm dead, my love."
And he's gone, "Oh, as I'm Sean Bastard Bean, I'm going to stay in Bastard Silent Hill and find that bastard."
I'm going to find my bastard wife.
And then that's it. So they go to the side of the road, and they're picked up by a man called Travis Grady, who is the protagonist in Silent Hill Origins. And they drive past a prison bus that is the same one from Silent Hill Downpour. So at the end, someone's gone, "We should probably make this about Silent Hill." And they didn't. So, guys, will you ever watch this film again?
Probably not, no.
Probably not? Or
Probably not.
Alex said no, straight flat out, which I enjoyed. Any other passing words on this?
Would you watch this film again, Joey? You didn't answer.
Ooh, I'm trying to decide between watching this film again or shitting in my hands and clapping, and it's really difficult.
That's a tough choice.
I think I'd choose the latter.
Oh, yeah?
I'll never watch this film again. This is the second time I've watched it, and my God, I think I've lost years of my life.
I have 2 little points I want to bring up.
Okay.
Just 2 little ones. I know it's meant to be a horror film, but is it just me, or was there an unnecessary amount of screaming through the film?
Yes.
It seems like every 5 seconds there was a scream. And then the second thing is...
In the edit for this, I might just put screams underneath us for the whole time so the audience can experience.
Anytime there's a
immersion.
silence. And then, so the second thing is, we've said this before on Game Club. The thing that makes a horror movie or a horror franchise scary is not showing the monster until you absolutely must. In the first 10 minutes, you see more monsters than you do humans. And it
Yes,
just
I agree.
feels so like the opening shot being Pyramid Head is I don't know.
Well, I think that this film does something that video games do, and it's delivered like a video game rather than a film. So you have exposition, action sequence, exposition, action sequence, exposition, action sequence, and then you get to a point where you've gone, I've had my lore dump, just have action sequences. And I think this is how this film was played out. So in that sense, like, fine. It's storytelling that works for a game. It's a video game movie. It doesn't work for a movie. There was no character development whatsoever. And I just found myself wanting them all to die.
It just feels like up until the end where you've got the big demon versus Pyramid Head, it feels like every other scene you could have had hints at the monster. You could see people get dragged off screen and things like that, and it would have made it better. But instead they went, oh, look at this CGI mannequin spider.
Yeah, for 2 minutes that we never referenced.
They could have, if they treat that more like Shelob in Lord of the Rings, it would have been good.
Right, I'm bored of talking about this film. Let's never speak of it again. Alex, what are we watching next time?
So next time we get the release of Monster Hunter Wilds at the end of February. So we're going to watch the Monster Hunter movie.
Woo! This is one I actually wanted to see.
For better or for worse.
Like,
this is one I've seen.
There you go.
Oh no, this is a step up.
Thank God, because if it was down, I wouldn't know where it would go.
Just looking at the letterbox page for this movie, someone's just pointed out, and something I didn't clock. This is the second project with Kit Harington and Sean Bean working together.
Was this pre-Game of Thrones?
This is pre-Game of Thrones.
Oh, cool. Nice. Well, on that horrifying note for everyone involved, thank you for joining us for this episode of Video Game Movie Club. We will see you next. I mean, we as a collective will see you in a few days, week, however long this scheduling works for. A week. Thank you, Alex. Jesus Christ. And as a movie club, we'll see you in a month's time. Have a great month, everyone. See you later.
Bye. Don't watch this film.
Bye. Never watch it. It doesn't exist. Bye.
It's awful. Kill it. Burn it.
In a pixelated haze, we dive into the screen. Joey, Alex, Tim, they're the movie club team. Button mashing nights and cutscene dreams. We're living the madness, bursting at the seams. Coins to credits and levels of thrills. Every episode pounding like a boss fight chill. Mysteries unraveling in virtual thrills. No continues here, just gut-busting skills. Game over, and I'll see you next week. Plug the controller. Tim speak with Joey's laughter, Alex on the critique. In the Video Game Movie Club we peak.